comfortable. And you always want your walk to be enjoyable.
Well, first announcements, there will be no first Friday in January, just because that will be the New Year's, right after the New Year's holiday. There will be no second Saturday in December, but there'll be a second Saturday in January. So I don't think they have a speaker yet. Delbert, is Karen around? Does she want to announce the membership drive for the Women's Federation, or do you want to do that, Alex? Or
Karen?
Well, I can certainly do it. We have started asking people to renew their memberships. Unfortunately, since we can't meet in person, people were often quite happy to send me a $20 bill, but nobody wants to write a check and mail it to me. But basically, that's what you're going to have to do now. Although you can put a $20 bill in an envelope with a paper around it, I think it's relatively safe. But it's $20 and it's due now and all through December and into part of January. And our next meeting, Alex may want to say more about this, but it's December the 13th, and that's our election of officers. Alex?
Yes, so I have a couple announcements. The first one is that we are still collecting donations up until the 7th of December for the peanut butter and jelly family services that's based in Bernalillo. It goes to help families in Sandoval County. This year we are supporting or are contributing to six. Okay, whose volume is that? Anyway, we're helping out 6 families this year, which I think is the most we've ever started. So thank you very much for that. We still have Feed Rio Rancho Kids continuing, and that will continue. We have a steering committee that'll transition with the new administration for the Women's Federation. So keep an eye out for that. We donate gift cards from the grocery stores to help feed children who are hungry. And that goes into Rio Rancho. There is an election on December 13th, and we need members to attend because we need a quorum. So if you would please, we will be calling members to make sure that they're attending and that they have the link. And there are reminders going out regularly. And finally, since I'm making announcements, I might as well just announce that I am running to be the Sandoval County Democratic Party chair for the next election. And David Diatley is my vice chair. And I hope if you are on the CCC that I can count on your support. If you're in my ward, I hope I can count on your support. So thank you so much. And that's all I've got to say about that.
okay, great. And then before I announce the dignitaries in the room, is there anybody else running for chair, vice chair, or ward chair? That's for the elections coming up in spring. Going once, going twice. All right, so let me announce the presence of some dignitaries here, and if they're able to unmute themselves. Brian Colon, State Auditor Brian Colon, are you there?
I am not only there, I am here, and I am so pleased to be here. It's great to be with Sandoval County Democrats as often as I possibly can. Thanks for doing the outreach into the community during this time. I look forward to making contributions to support that effort. And maybe as an asterisk or a footnote or a thought, maybe someone can reach out to Commissioner Eichwald to see if he knows some families. Is it Alamo? Which of our reservations are there in Sandoval County? I know Rio Rancho gets a lot of attention during this time of year, but maybe our Native American sisters and brothers could use some help there. Maybe we can lend a hand to a couple families out there with some of those food gift cards if Alexandria is amenable to that. But thank you for all your work. That's all I have.
Yes, I'll reach out to Commissioner Eichwald for sure, definitely.
Great. And County Commissioner Catherine Brook, do you want to say hello?
Hi, good morning. Oh, it's still morning, right? I'm lost on days and hours, as most of you are in the world. It's great to see your lovely faces. I'm looking forward to, really looking forward to the first 100 days of the Biden.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. And Barbara Romo, do you want to give an update as to what's going on with your race? Barbara, are you there? Okay, I'll just speak on her behalf. So,
There.
oh,
I'm here. I'm
okay,
sorry, I
great.
couldn't unmute.
Oh, okay.
The recount started on Tuesday in all 3 counties. They were supposed to be done yesterday. Cibola's done, Valencia's finished, and Sandoval should be finished any minute now. So far, there haven't been any changes with the exception of Sandoval. There was one vote that was for me that went to my opponent, but that's the only change so far. So it looks pretty good.
Great. Well, we're keeping our fingers crossed for you, Barbara. Once that's official, let me know and I'll post it on Facebook. So we're definitely keep our fingers crossed, and we look forward to having you speak at one of our events as a newly elected official. So great. Is there any other announcements, candidacies, or any other dignitaries in the room that I happen to skip over? Going once, going twice.
One more thing, John. Based on what Mr. State Auditor Cologne suggested, if there's anyone who would like to donate to someone in Commissioner Eichwald's district, let me know and I can help make the connection.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alex. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our very newest state senator for Sandoval County, Brenda McKenna. She is a incredibly intelligent person, and a person who won a very hard-fought campaign. And Brenda, what was the position you were elected to recently in the state Senate?
Oh, yes, I'm going to be the new caucus chair. Senator Pete Campos is our current caucus chair.
Great. And folks, for a freshman state senator to have that position, that's a big deal. So I think that says a lot about Brenda's bright future. And I just want to introduce everybody to Brenda McKenna. And Brenda, I really appreciate you being our first newly elected official to lead off our speaking series here in Sandoval County. So everybody give a big hand to Brenda McKenna.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased to be with you. And thank you, all of you, for joining us this morning. I am really thrilled that I get to speak, right? Because as a lead speaker, that means that we had a very good decisive victory on November 4th. And that would not have happened without every one of you on my screen. Many of you made phone calls for this campaign, donated more than once. We all know how expensive it is to run. And so I sincerely thank you, and I will not forget it. I am also will not forget our tremendous candidates, Alex, Leah, Jessica, Billy, Gary, Pam, Naomi, Soshi. As much as I was running too, I felt I was running for them too. And so I have a tremendous respect for all of you. And anytime you want to run for office, you let me know, because I will do what I can to help you. I also think, folks, we always have to have the next election in mind, right? It's just a matter of how much throttle we have in there. But I think we can't relax. So many observations I made this year just tells me we really have to stay on course. For instance, always try to get folks to register to vote. We just always have to have the next election on our minds. Just as I said earlier when I was running, public office is honorable, and I will not forget who I work for. I work for you and your families. So please contact me. Many of you have already contacted me already. I really appreciate that. And please be patient as I respond to your messages while I orient myself to this new role. I am still working full-time for Congresswoman Deb Haaland, and that will change once the session is in commences, okay? So I thought I would do just a few topics here, Chair. The 2021 session, work groups that we've organized, the special session, the governor's priorities, my priorities, and then the plans that I have so I can learn more about your priorities. So first, the 2021 session. Virtually every weekend, we have already met with Senators Peter Wirth and Mimi Stewart. And one of the things that have been high on our discussion agenda is how are we going to convene in January, right? So there have been several scenarios presented to us. It's still to be determined. But one thing is for sure, the Roundhouse will be closed to the public. There have been quite a few senators who want to convene virtually all of the time. But I think what the governor puts forth for us, we definitely want to adhere to as much as possible. And then adjust our respective rules in both chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Like I said, we've been meeting virtually every weekend. That included having interviews with our candidates who wanted to be in the pro tem leadership. I want you to know that my colleagues and I, we had one-on-one phone calls with the candidates, email exchanges, and on one Sunday we had virtual interviews. So they were all sequential. And I found that to be very helpful. We went through at least 3 ties in the chamber before Senator Mimi Stewart was successful in winning. I'm feeling very, very confident that she's going to be a superb pro tem for us. She's already told us how she wants to mentor us, especially the freshmen. And we know how she is so successful at getting good legislation through. She's been highly rated as working with folks both on the Republican side. And so I think that will bode well for all of us. Something we have done recently in preparation for the session is Senators Wirth and Stewart have organized us into work groups. So these are work groups based on certain topics that they've deemed priorities for us. So what we've been tasked to do is for each topic that we've been assigned to, we're all assigned to one, we are to review legislation that's already been drafted in those areas, identify gaps, and offer remedies on how to fix them. We all have a deadline to do that. It's December 19th. And I'd like to mention the work groups to you for your information. The first one is COVID-19, the state of the 2021 response. It's being chaired by Senator Cervantes and Senator Ortiz-Pino. And we have freshman, Dr. and Senator-elect Martin Hickey to join that. Next, we have climate, environment, and conservation. It is headed by Senator Stefanix, and the freshman is me. Next, we have tax reform. That is going to be co-chaired by Senator Shendo and Wirth, and the freshman is Senator-elect Harold Pope. Next, we have broadband. It's going to be headed by Senator Padilla, who already, I understand, has quite a few bills about broadband. And it's going to be joined by freshman Senator-elect Carrie Hemphill. Next, we have cannabis. It will be headed by Senator Jacob Candelaria. And our freshman joining him is Senator-elect Leo Jaramillo. Next, we have rules, and it will be headed by Senator and our new majority whip, pardon me, Senator Linda Lopez, and our freshman will be Senator-elect Katie Duhigg. Finally, we have work group education, and it will be headed up by Senator Souls, Senator Stewart, and our freshman on that group will be Senator-elect Saya Correa Hemphill. So again, we are going to be convening respectively. And then by the 19th of December, turn in our homework and again, review the legislation, identify gaps, and propose some remedies for those gaps. I participated, well, I looked at the special session that was on the webcast on the 24th of November. I'm sure many of you probably joined as well. And I'll tell you, I was really concerned about some of the proposed amendments, including some of our senators wanted to make a section off some of that CARES money to the unemployment insurance. Where that puzzled me was on two fronts. One is we really needed, this is an emergency, a global pandemic. We've got so many of our New Mexicans that are out of work, our small businesses are really ailing. And the idea of quartering off, putting aside millions of dollars to unemployment insurance, I found was the wrong priority. The other thing what was concerning me is the amount of time that the senators were willing to spend in that chamber. I thought in light of the pandemic, at most maybe 2.5 hours, because the goals of that session were pretty narrow. The governor just wanted to get that CARES money out, $300 million, to New Mexicans that were hurting. So that concerned me, and I did notice that some of our senators did go up to their respective offices to reduce the amount of time they were in that room. And I did notice some senators were not wearing their masks properly. But the good thing is $300 million is being distributed to our many small businesses, the unemployed, those in need of housing, and $5 million is going to our food banks. So that's good. Now, the governor's priorities are the following for 2021: funding for early childhood education, supporting New Mexico businesses, childhood and welfare reform, protecting New Mexicans from predatory lending practices, recreational cannabis, and education priorities. And I think many of those are important to us too. And as a matter of fact, my priorities are very similar. And that's why I'm so thrilled we have such a wonderful governor leading us. I too want to help our small businesses. We do have that very good legislation, the Small Business Recovery Loan Act, that is co-sponsored by our Representative Damon Eli. But I do know there are some businesses that don't want to be saddled with debt, even though the interest rate is very low. So I too want to do that. I've got an idea for that, which I hope to propose soon. I too want to advocate for our children and our educators, meaning no cuts to education, no cuts to our health care. And I really want to put money into addiction treatment and behavioral health. I'm hopeful that the Healthcare Security Act, which has been floating around waiting for approval for at least 20 years, will finally pass. That is being championed by Senator Ortiz-Pino. And I'm really glad that Senator Padilla has a robust amount of legislation to address the broadband issues, because we certainly have that here in Sandoval as well. And I'm all on board about diversifying our economy. We know how the boom and bust cycle of oil and gas is something that we cannot sustain. It's not sustainable, right? Not only is it unhealthy for us, those that live around it, it's unhealthy for Earth. And once again, I'm really quite proud we have a governor and many legislators that believe the same way, and we can diversify our economy to solar, wind, and other good agricultural crops. Let's see. So with that, Chair, I do want to know, so I've been talking a lot about my priorities, but of course, I want to learn more about the priorities of my new constituents. And so to that end, what I've planned to do is have so far I've scheduled 2 pre-session forums. The first one's going to be January 7th, 6 to 7 p.m. And our special guest is going to be Senator Mimi Stewart. And the second session I've planned is for Tuesday, January 12th, 6 to 7:15 p.m. My special guest is to be determined. Now, I do have some limitations with the Zoom room account. It is limited to 100 RSVPs. So if there is more demand from all constituents in the district, I will schedule a third session. And Senator Stewart has assured me that if we get some great ideas from constituents, even in those early days of January, there's still plenty of time for us to address it and perhaps propose something for the session, which begins on the 20th, is it? 20th of January? Okay, I feel like I'm pretty much on my time, Chair. I yield the microphone and to the next agenda, or if there's any questions. Thank you.
Question. Senator McKenna, what are you doing about the abortion? I believe the anti-abortion bill is still on our books in New Mexico. And Roe v. Wade may be overturned. So I think it's essential that the legislature gets rid of it.
Okay, sorry, I think we had, I forgot to unmute myself. So, so Judith, Brenda, did you hear Judith's question? We'll get to that first, then Paul Stokes, and then Nisa's. Did you hear that question?
Yeah, Judith, is your question, what do I think will happen with the abortion?
It's more than a question.
Okay.
I trust that you'll work hard to get rid of that bill.
Yeah.
That law.
And as a matter of fact, I was in a forum with Senators Lopez, Stewart, and Worth. And one of the questions that came up, how are their feelings about the success of overturning that? And all of them put their hands up. So I think that's going to be a high priority item once the session convenes.
It's a high priority. I was aghast that you didn't mention it as a high priority, because it's so important to so many women. Not me, I'm 91 years old, but it's very important to many women in this country and in the state.
Like I said, leadership basically said that is going to be one of the very first items that they contend with. And they also have a very good feeling that it will be overturned.
Okay, great.
Why isn't it your priority item?
That's simply an oversight from the sheet this morning, but obviously it is. I don't believe any politician or government should be in the way of a woman's reproductive choices. That's between her and her medical provider.
Good, thank you.
All right, great. So Paul Stokes, do you have a question?
Yeah, John. Hi, Brenda. Paul Stokes here.
Hey, Paul.
I really appreciated your rundown of all the bills and how promising they were and what your priorities were. But I was unable to follow that in terms of documenting it because it was too much of a rush for me to write all those notes. So is there somewhere that's documented, like on your webpage, or could you put it in the chat or somehow document that for us? That's question one, and I have another question, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Let's see, Chair, how should I send it to you?
You're muted.
Paul, do you want to, put your email address in the chat box, and then that way Brenda can see it, and that way you guys can communicate directly?
That's fine, although other people may be interested too.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, Paul. This is Rosella. I agree. I think it should be widely distributed.
Okay.
Okay.
Should I send it to you, Chairman?
Sure, go for it.
Okay.
Okay, good. And my second point is I was a little surprised to hear that you had so many chairs of committees identified, and I think that's great. That's kind of unusual, in fact, to know this early in time, in my experience. But that too, I'd like to see that list, because I didn't copy it all down. Maybe you can put that in the chat box.
Sure. And maybe I didn't clarify, Paul, but those lead chairs and then the freshmen that have joined them,
Yeah.
it's for the work groups only. So these work groups are being set up so that we are at ahead of the game for when the session begins.
I get it. I'm
But
sorry.
I'll include this to our chairman as well.
Okay, good. Thanks very much, Brenda. Nice to have you.
Thank you, Paul.
Great. Is Mike and Pam Neese there?
Yeah.
Do you want to ask your question?
Sure. Hi, Brenda. Congratulations and
We're so glad.
and
Thank
congratulations.
you, Mike. Thank you, Pamela.
Yeah. And we're the lucky recipients.
Yes.
Yeah, you're the one who's going to do all the work for us. So we've talked about this before, and I'm working hard on the issue of a green amendment, a New Mexico green amendment to our Constitution to give inalienable rights to New Mexicans for clean air, clean water, and clean lands. And with the water issues that we've got and the water issues that we've got coming and the methane issues that we've got now, do you support a New Mexico Green Amendment to our state constitution?
So I really like the spirit of having such legislation, Mike. And as a matter of fact, this question came to Senators Worth and Stewart this past week. And they pointed out that they believe we already have some legislation and that basically it just needs some formality around it, but I will check in with them. And then if you could, I have your email address, I could confer with them and get some more information and language about how they were addressing that, because it did come up in, like I said, the session this week.
Okay, thank you. What I'll do is I will send you the annotated section 20 or Article 20, Section 21 from our state constitution that we already have, that is totally inadequate, that has failed us every time, and it is annotated in the state constitution right now. So I'll send that to you along with the current wording. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, and that's exactly what Senator Worth was referring to. And
Yeah.
so we would want to take a look at that and see what is missing in that language.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Charles Goodmacher, do you have a question?
Yes, congratulations again, Senator-elect.
Thank you for your help.
Of course. Wish I could have done more, but so glad for the outcome. So I put in the chat box a link to a report by an international consulting firm, research outfit, long name, Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis. So yeah, a bunch of wonky people, economists and others who demonstrate. The report goes into great length. The link is to a one-page summary, but you can link to the whole long report from there about the long-term decline of the oil and gas industry. It is not just COVID related. So many factors, you know, the value of those companies has gone into the basement, you know, for investors and so on. So it really demonstrates that if we're going to continue to rely on oil and gas for revenue, that we're headed, it's fiscally imprudent that we're headed for such long-term damage to fund our ability to fund anything, whether it's education, public health, roads, safety, whatever, everything. And we really need to start now before that long-term damage really sets in place. So love to hear your comments about taxes in general and need to diversify. And specifically, I really hope that you'll be able to get behind, if not at this moment, very soon, behind repealing the personal income tax cuts and corporate income tax cuts of the past that did nothing to improve our economy.
Yeah, and I recall Senator Ortiz-Pino, you know, he's very interested in helping the finance committee because there are so many programs that are not funded, right? They're not funded adequately. And one of the things he does mention is the repeal of personal income tax during the Bill Richardson administration, where we're losing millions of dollars each year. I also know that through GRT, there's quite a few loopholes that are problematic. And then the third rail on that, which I briefly went over, is our need to diversify our economy and bring in another stream of tax revenue. And one of the ones I think about is cannabis. We've got neighboring states, they're doing it, Colorado, Washington, Nevada. And if we follow best practices as far as education for our kids, and then helping law enforcement, we can do it. So I will look in the chat and pick up that link that you shared, okay?
Great, thank you.
Great. And I'm going to ask a question myself that Brian Colon brought up in the chat. Brenda, what do you think about you know, the issue of abolishing the last unpaid legislature in the country? What do you think about paying our state senators and state reps?
Oh yeah, number one, you know what really bothers me is we have so many talented New Mexicans that would like to serve in public office, especially in the legislature, right? But right off the bat, they cannot honestly consider it because they can't afford to leave their job, right? So we're missing out on all that talent. And that's always been bothersome to me. Now, something I did learn from Senator Worth is that if New Mexico wants to try this again, it has to be put to the voters. So there's quite a few of us in the Senate chamber that want to see it turned around. It should be a professional legislature. We should be able to have some staff support through the year, not just through the session, because it's a full-time job. It's demanding. But again, we would have to put it to the people. The people have to vote.
Great. So who else has questions or issues they want to bring up? This is going to be your new state senator. So I know some things in the chat box. People are running some issues by. So I'm just going to call out.
Mr. Chairman.
Huh?
Mr. Chairman, Brian Colon here. Just to clarify my comment, because you didn't read the whole comment, and Senator-elect, Madam Leader, I'm clearly aware it's got to go before the voters, but it starts with an action in the body of 112. You've got to pass it out, get it to us, make it a priority. We will back you up. I will certainly back you up. We have got to fix this issue. We're an elite legislature for the exact reasons you stated. We will back you up. Please pass it, get it out. Let's get it in front of the voters. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brian.
Wonderful, State Auditor. Yeah, I really think that we can do this. And thank you for expressing your support for it.
Okay, who else has questions or comments?
John, I have a question for Senator-elect. Again, I offer my congratulations. This is Rosella, by the way. My question is, I didn't hear, or maybe I missed, any mention about election reform. And I'm interested in continuing to move towards an entire mail ballot system. Do you know anybody who's looking at that?
Hi, Rosella, thank you for joining us. I believe Senator Daniel Ivy Soto is, but I would have to find that out. But I think I would like an all-mail election system. I think of our neighboring state, Colorado. They have in excess of 80% participation. And if anything, just like our Secretary of State, Maggie Toulouse-Oliver has said time and time again, we should be promoting and encouraging voting participation and not discouraging it. And so when I hear about these statistics of 80 and more participation, I think Washington's another state that does this. I want New Mexico to have those kinds of participation rates by our voters.
Great. Who else? Jonathan Munoz, did you have a question maybe about cannabis? I don't know if he's online. Who else has questions or comments for our new state senator-elect?
Yeah. Brenda, I was just wondering, do you have a legislative email yet?
Not yet, but I hope to within the next week.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask again, does anybody else have questions or comments or issues that they want to talk about with our new state senator-elect? Going once?
Yes, John.
Okay.
So hi, Alex again. Hi, Brenda, and thank you. So one of the questions I had was about end of life options, if that's anything that is being looked at. Legalizing end of life options for people.
Yeah, and someone in the summer educated me that that I should refer to it as medical aid in dying. Our caucus has not discussed it, Alex, but I'll certainly bring it up this weekend.
Thank you.
I support it, by the way, medical aid in dying.
Thank you.
John?
Go ahead, Rosella.
Yeah, just a couple of other points. I guess one point is that with COVID and the stress that it is having on our healthcare providers, we're seeing at least some reports of a fairly substantial concerning increase in suicide rates amongst the healthcare providers. So, you know, are you aware of any action that's being taken to recognize that and to take some effective steps to assist the healthcare providers that are under such stress?
Hi, Rosella. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. No, I did not know there was an increase in suicide among our healthcare providers.
Yeah, we're losing them both to just fatigue, burnout, and themselves contracting the virus, and now to suicide because it's just a tremendous stress on these people.
Do you have something you can send to me about the suicide rates?
I will look to see if I can find some specific data on that. Okay, so my second,
I'll put my email address in the chat box. Yeah, I know about the burnout. I know about how they've contracted it, but I didn't know about the suicide, which is very alarming, obviously.
Right. My second question is just in terms of the sessions, the two pre-session Zooms that you're going to have January 7th and January the 12th. What would be the most helpful to you in terms of preparing for those? Should we send you our questions ahead of time, our priority items ahead of time? What would help you the most?
Oh, that would be helpful, Rosella. Yeah. Because that'll give me time to address it and even may be able to say a yes or no about how the caucus feels about it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So if we've got just a little more time, I'll go ahead with another environmental question.
Go for it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
So in Brenda, in 2019, we passed a very bad something called a Produced Water Act, which allows recycled toxic wastewater from the fracking processes to be used in agriculture and to potentially be dumped into our rivers and streams. And there is an amendment proposed for that act this session, and that would do at least, I'm hoping 3 things, and I think all 3 of these are on there. One is it would force the oil and gas industry to use nothing but produced water and absolutely no clean water. It would not allow any produced water to be used for anything other than the oil and gas industry. And then thirdly, in there, the original act allowed for the last man holding to have the liability for any problems that arose from produced water. That needs to be changed. Whoever takes it out of the ground and whoever touches it from that point on should be responsible for any contaminations or any problems whatsoever that arise from produced water. So I hope that you will support anything regarding improvements to our Produced Water Act.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Mike. And it just drives me, it's really hard for me to believe that these companies will not share the content of the chemicals that they're using and contaminating our watersheds and the like. So I know there's fracking in New Mexico. I know we have a lot of New Mexicans that they work for that industry. That's why all the more so I want us to move on and get good training and apprenticeships, education for those that want to work in wind and solar, so we do not have to have fracking in New Mexico in the future.
Great.
Thank you. There is one more thing, and that is there's a proposed bill for private right to action. Private right to action would allow individuals to bring suit against violators such as oil and gas companies that have maybe contaminated our lands or our air or our water. Right now, in certain cases, only the state can bring that action. And so I think that it's very important that the people of New Mexico have a private right of action.
I agree.
Thank you.
All right. Who else has questions or comments for Brenda?
I had a comment.
Go ahead, Jude.
Roach. Yeah, firstly, I want to apologize for jumping on you so harshly. I do appreciate, and I want to tell you that I do appreciate all the good stands that you take. I was just really aghast at that being missed, but I could understand you're overlooking it with so many other things. And
Not to worry, Judith, and thank you for being the activist you are for women and their families.
you're very welcome.
Brenda, I would just like to congratulate you as well, not only for your election, but for your leadership role. Thank you, Senator-elect, for all you're going to do for us in the future. I know that you will be responsive and interested in many of the issues that we've been talking about today. So I also want to thank you for already communicating with me about a couple of those that are very close to home here in the Pasitas area with my constituents, and thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And my time responding will get better once I get more acclimated and when I'm not working full time in January, okay? But thank you for your patience. I do care.
Thank you.
Who else? Going once? Going twice? Well, Brenda, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We know you're going to do a fantastic job. We've foisted a lot on your plate, but we know you're smart and talented and you'll be able to handle it. And best of luck in this session. We hope to have you sometime maybe in the spring or summertime so you can talk about the outcomes of the legislative session that's upcoming. So thank you so much. And we look forward to hearing from you more as time goes on.
Great. Yeah, and I'm going to depend upon all of you to give me feedback, timely performance feedback, because like I said, I work for you and I'll never forget that.
Thanks.
Great. Well, Brenda, it looks like we're going to give you 8-9 minutes of your time back to you so you can get back to work for Deb. And everybody, really appreciate seeing everybody here. And don't forget about our second Saturday in January. And we'll have announcements on that in the next newsletter. And if I don't hear from you guys, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Hi, Tweety.
All right.
Thank you, John, especially. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Bye.